Jennifer Warren, who's with us for the first time. She chatted that she has been reading the tiny letter, and this is the first time she's come. She wants to know if it's okay to multitask. I say anyone who needs to multitask away. Do whatever you need to do. Lay down and take a nap. Do some yoga. Whatever you need to do. It's just wonderful to have everyone here. And if you get bored with what's happening, check out the chat, because Cliff is posting some things that are very relevant to what we're talking about today. And also, Jewel emails the chat out to everyone afterwards. By the way, thank you, Jewel. Thank you, Herb. Thank you, Liv, for noticing that I never sent the Zoom link in the tiny letter.
Yeah, Cecil. Thank you, Cecil, too, for that. I only send the chat to people who attend. And so if this is your first time, put your email in the chat, because that's the only way to get it. And the beauty of the chat is there a lot of times we figure out like what to do, and lots of links and important actions. So you will want to sign up for that.
Great. One note of caution about putting things in chat: if you're sending things privately on chat, which you can do, you have the option of clicking on either send to everyone or pick a person to send to. Those will show up in the chat when it is published. So even if it's private, so be careful.
I do take them out.
Yeah, they won't show up.
Thank you for sharing the chats. Not every Zoom does it, and there's a lot of important information that people share on chat. So thank you.
Jeremy is with us now. Okay, welcome to Tuesdays with Tillis, week number 174.
Oh, unbelievable.
Welcome, Jennifer, who's here for the first time with us. Anyone else here for the first time? Raise your hand or yell. Welcome, Jeremy Sprinkle, who's going to speak to us about an action on June 3rd. And I invite everyone to take a deep breath, and Randa will do a singing invocation.
A little different today, but you know it. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching on to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no bullies, no threats turn me round. Oh, turn me round. Turn us round. Ain't gonna let no bullies, no threats turn us around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching on to freedom land. Now everybody, ain't gonna let nobody, turn us around, turn us around, yeah, turn us around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. We're gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching on to freedom land.
Nice.
Yes.
Excellent. Very good.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. And Toby's also here for the very I'd like to introduce Jeremy Sprinkle. And Elena, since you were so smart as to bring him here, can you introduce him, please? And I'm going to mute everyone. And so Elena and then Jeremy, you can unmute yourself.
It
Wait.
I got it. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce you to a freedom fighter who has been doing this way before it was cool, way before people said like, yeah, we got to do this. We've had some very fun times protesting together, raising hell and making trouble. I first came upon him during the fights for against HB2, and we fought shoulder to shoulder on that one. Without further ado, my friend, I am honored to know Jeremy Sprinkle.
That is super kind. Thank you, Elena, and thanks to everybody, Karen, and everybody else who's on the call. Thanks to all your rabble-rousing. I mean, 170 plus weeks. That's super impressive. And so it's an honor for me to be here. And thank you for inviting me into your space to talk about this very important action that we have on June 3rd. I know that's a Wednesday. This is Tuesdays with Tillis crowd, but I'm hoping that you can be with us. Wednesday, June 3rd is a national day of action called for by the National AFL-CIO and our international and national union affiliates to put workers first. AFL and its affiliates are holding Workers First caravans across the United States on June 3rd. These caravans are to highlight America's 5 economic essentials for responding to the pandemic, essentials that put working people first. And we want to raise some attention in Raleigh and raise some hell outside of Senator Tillis's office, both because Senator Tillis has a key role to play as a member of the Republican majority in the United States Senate, which is currently holding up the HEROES Act passed by the United States House, the 4th coronavirus stimulus bill. And we need to call attention to his actions and lack of actions around pandemic response. So the idea that we had for Raleigh, we've 2 things planned on the 3rd. Primarily going to focus on the first action, which we have tentatively scheduled for 11 a.m. on Wednesday, June 3rd, outside of Senator Tillis's office in the Terry Sanford Federal Building in Raleigh. Keeping with how we like to roll, this would be a short action, maybe lasting 15 or 20 minutes, but we hope it will be impactful. And the idea is, since we have to be physically distant while still raising some hell, the idea that we came up with was to do a caravan, wrap it around the block. As all of y'all know, it's a good location to do one of these caravans because you can simply make right turns and circle the block as many times as you like. There's plenty of available lanes for traffic, so we won't be holding anybody up. We'll be able to keep participants safe. And the idea is just for about 15 minutes, starting at 11 on Wednesday, June 3rd, for supporters to circle the block with messages written on their windows, signs attached to their car with magnets or whatever makes sense for folks. While we would have 5 speakers, each physically distant on the sidewalk out front of the courthouse, 1 speaker for each of the 5 points in America's 5 economic essentials. And we'll put out a media advisory for this. Whether we get media to attend or not, I'm not sure. But we're certainly going to push for that. And hopefully some reporters who show up will be able to interview from a safe distance the 5 different speakers and capture some shots of the caravan to boost our presence. And to make the most out of this effort, we plan to live stream the action on our Facebook page. And that's, in a nutshell, that's the event. So we've got this event listed currently on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/NC State AFL-CIO. We also have a non-Facebook RSVP option. I shared those with both links to both those things, the Facebook event page and the non-Facebook RSVP page with Elena this morning. So you can share those with your folks. And I'm just interested in hearing from y'all what you think of this action, whether you can come out and support us for 15, 20 minutes on June 3rd. And any other questions that you may have for me that I'm able to answer.
Jeremy, can you address the fact that the United States postal workers are involved in this as well?
Yes. So one of the 5 economic essentials is about keeping our central, state, local government services, schools, and the United States Post Office solvent. There's a major crisis on the horizon for the post office. It's a crisis that's been in the making for over a decade because of laws passed during the George W. Bush administration that require the Postal Service to pre-fund their healthcare and retirement benefits 75 years into the future. It's an incredible fiscal burden on an agency, one that no corporation or government on the planet shoulders. Nevertheless, the post office has been kicking ass, but the pandemic has hurt business, and many people may not know the post office is the only government service specifically called for in the United States Constitution. And it's really important that we keep it solvent and running. So one of the 5 speakers that we'll have will be a postal worker from the either the American Postal Workers Union, APWU, or the National Association of Letter Carriers, NALC, to share their brief story, 2 to 3 minutes, about why the Postal Service is important. But we all know that if we're going to make our voices heard in November, that we're going to need a Postal Service that is still fully functional and has the money that it needs to continue operating so that people can do mail-in balloting, absentee balloting. And so there's a post office right across the street. We are new to this caravan action, although we participate in a coalition that pulled off a caravan outside of Senator Berger's office in Eden, or home and office in Eden, a few weeks ago. It's kind of new for us, so we're thinking about inviting people to participate in the caravan, meet us in the Postal Service parking lot, get lined up on the street, and we'll have folks travel around the block, toot the horn when they're passing the post office, and just show some support, because
Jeremy,
it's not enough.
Jeremy,
go ahead. Yeah.
We did about 168 weeks and learned some things. And one of them is do not park in the postal parking lot. We were told by the city police that we would be towed.
Okay.
So do not do that.
Okay.
We have found other parking for people who need to park.
Okay.
Okay.
That's helpful. So that's exactly the kind of tips that we need.
We can.
You have a suggestion on where people participate in the caravan might meet up? Perhaps it's just on that side street that crosses New Bern. I think that's east, but
there's also the lot that is it's a municipal lot, and people can snake around and just come right out onto New Bern. It's that's a good lot as well.
Is that the lot that's on the block where behind Marbles Kids Museum?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think that if we are instructed to turn our lights on, and if we all have big signs on our cars, it won't be hard for us to consolidate ourselves and start going around the block.
Okay.
Right.
And I think the only people who really need to park are the people who will be, hopefully we'll have some people in masks with social distance standing in front of the post office with big signs, save the post office.
Nice. That's a great idea.
Yeah. And, maybe Lady Liberty would do that. And, we have a few costumes that we could do. Someone could pull out the orange jumpsuit with the Donald Trump mask.
Karen, and
for one of the points.
I have a question. If the AFL went to the police department, and actually it'd be interesting to have them join us in solidarity, but if you went to the police department, you couldn't ask just for the 20 minutes to be in the post office parking lot. the AFL-CIO, I think, together with the police union, might be able to do that. It would also alert them to what we're doing, and they can participate in their off hours.
That's a fine idea. So I'm glad you mentioned that. We have filed a permit and received a permit from the city of Raleigh. And so the RPD will be aware of our action on June 3rd. I really appreciate the idea about having some people who don't participate in the caravan, but still show up to show their support. Standing across the street, I'm glad you said something about that. That's also something that we had thought might be possible. And so that's great. As long as people feel safe in doing that, maintain physical distancing, wearing the appropriate PPE, it would be awesome to have some folks standing on the sidewalk outside of the postal service.
We have two other questions. One is, do you need help with publicity? Would it be helpful for us to put out a separate publicity blitz about Tuesdays with Tillis is participating with the AFL-CIO to do this? I'm kind of directing this to Mark, who does publicity for us, and also to you.
Absolutely, that would be helpful. I'm mindful that y'all have been at this for a while. You've got some relationships with local reporters and TV stations, and if they saw a message from Tuesdays with Tillis about this action on Wednesday, June 3rd, and why y'all are going to be out there, I think that would be extremely helpful.
What do you think about that? Yeah, Mark is nodding his head. Univision in particular will usually show up if we ask them.
That sounds fantastic. If it's helpful, the National AFL-CIO provided state federations and central labor councils like ours with a toolkit for organizing these events. That toolkit, in addition to including some social media graphics, has some some sample language for an advisory, more information about the event itself. And I'd be happy to share that link to that with Elena so that she can forward it to y'all in the group. That's a fantastic idea.
And one other question is, will there be a virtual event for people who don't want to do the caravan or the witness?
On Facebook.
Our intention is to live stream this on our Facebook page. So yes. So we'll have somebody, possibly me, who will be recording the remarks of the speakers on the sidewalk, and then working in some shots of the caravan and the folks across the street. So people who want to support can view the action while we're out there and share it during the action and afterwards to let people know that we really need Senator Tom Tillis to step up. This isn't about partisan politics. This is about making sure that workers come first.
Yeah, we understand that. Listen, Libby said some of us did a drive-by recently around the prisons. We honked horns and put on flashing lights, not just our headlights. I don't see why we shouldn't do that. We want to attract as much attention as possible, right?
When we were in Eden, just to let you know, it was set up a few blocks away. So, I mean, we used Zoom and everybody could communicate. Everybody could listen to the leadership. And that was invaluable. The Zoom, just on your phone. It doesn't have, you don't have to look at anybody. And and the demands were on bullhorns. All of the demands for United First Rebel and Beyond were each car had a bullhorn. They read out the demand. The next car went right in front of his house. The next car went right in front of his house. And we all just snaked around. But we met up in a parking lot like a mile away, and we considered ourselves a funeral procession. So we went through lights, and we had our flashers on and our headlights on, but and that's how we all knew immediately there was an arrest, because it was like the last car that went through. I was the first car that goes through the light. The last car that went through the light got nailed. And and the whole thing was live. I mean, you could hear Tran, get your hands off of me. I am cooperating. And you can hear the whole thing. And certainly that's not what's going to happen here. But I think
we do need to communicate. And it's a great idea to be on Zoom because as someone put in chat, we can't be honking our horns when people are speaking. So that's terrific.
Oh, yeah.
Karen, one note on honking horns. We used to do honkin' waves weekly in Delray Beach as for peace actions, and some of us were threatened with arrest for encouraging people to break the law by holding up a sign that said "Honk for Peace," because in Florida, you are not allowed to use your horn except to indicate an emergency when you're driving. And so it's considered a breach of the noise ordinance or something. So we just need to check with the motor vehicles handbook to see what the rules are about the use of horns. And then just check with the police to see if we'll be able to do that, because we don't want to be creating taking attention away from the reason that we're there. So let's just check.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Yes. Well, that's a great flag as well. One of my coworkers is going to create a handout for the people who are participating in the caravan with some tips on it. One of the tips was going to be, don't lay on the horn. Just a few toots when you pass by the Terry Sanford building would be sufficient.
I want to bring everyone's attention to the chat box, and Jade's been trying to ask a question for a while, and we only have a few more minutes to give to this. There'll be more details in the Zoom. In the tiny letter. Go ahead, Jade.
I was going to say that the Raging Grannies have been planning an action at the post office, so we could coordinate our action on the day on June 3rd, and we could have a whole phalanx of grannies standing on the street with signs supporting the post office.
Physically distant, yeah.
Beautiful. And make sure that you coordinate with Mark so he can publicize that. Yes, Mark? Yeah. Okay, yes. Okay. I want to thank Jeremy so much, and we will keep in touch with you. Elena will give us your email. You will now get the tiny letter. You can unsubscribe at any time. But we'll be showing up.
Well, I'm so excited. I can't wait to report back. This is very exciting. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Elena. Thanks to everybody who's on the call. Thanks to the grannies. We have always appreciated y'all. And I know that in the past we've been able to collaborate on a few Tuesdays with Tillis Actions. So it's really exciting to be able to do this again. And I'll stay in touch with Elena and then with you, Karen, and just look forward to doing a fun creative action on Wednesday, June 3rd with y'all. And before I go, I would be doing a disservice to our partners with Organizing Together NC 2020 NC, who are also putting together a town hall Wednesday evening. So our action is Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. on June 3rd. Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Organizing Together 2020 NC will be holding a town hall that will also be part of the Workers First Day of Action. And we'll be sharing some information about their town hall on Wednesday evening on our Facebook page. And just encourage anybody who's interested to find us at facebook.com/NC State AFL-CIO and follow us on Twitter at the same, at NC State AFL-CIO. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for such a great discussion.
Take care.
Take care of yourself. Join us anytime. Thank you, everyone. And I'm muting everyone so that the grannies can one at a time unmute themselves and help us settle in.
Hey, Karen?
Yeah?
You got to give me the ability to share the screen.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone. This song is called In the Time of COVID-19. And you might remember we did sing this tune a few weeks ago, but we have repurposed the words today, taking out the words fight, 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 and putting in the word organize. And we also added some other words that Reverend Barber, who's the co-leader of the Poor People's Campaign, he put out a poem the other day, and it goes like this: stay at home, stay alive, organize, don't believe the lies. So we have incorporated Reverend Barber's words into this new song today, and here it goes.
The world is changing and rearranging. We must take this opportunity to organize for the changes the whole world needs now. We join our hands and we shall rise.
Free education, food abundance, healthcare for all, living wages. We must organize for the changes the whole world needs now. We join our hands and we shall rise.
Free education, food abundance, healthcare for all, living wages. We must organize for the changes the whole world needs now. We join our hands and we shall rise.
No fossil fuels and earth that cools. Care for animals and plant life. We must organize for the changes the whole world needs now. We join our hands and we shall rise. Now COVID-19, it's downright frightening. Oh, stay in place, stay alive, and organize for the changes the whole world needs now. We join our hands and we shall rise.
And democracy, no fascist monarchy, voting rights and human rights, and no more racist lies. For the values that we cherish, we must lift them to the light. For the values that we cherish, we must lift them to the light.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Grannies. You're so wonderful. I don't know which is more wonderful, the songs or just seeing you. I think it's probably just seeing you, but great songs. So a few of you, a few of us have been feeling like really to keep our eye on the ball, we have to keep paying attention to the news about the election. And there are so many of us all who are really keeping up with that. And one of the main people that has been doing that is Dr. Cliff Charles, who sends me articles that just scare the holy hell out of me. And I appreciate it so much. And I asked him if he would talk to us a little bit about what he's seen, because he's been really studying this. So thank you so much, Cliff. Take it away. You have to yeah.
All right. Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Can all of you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Hi, this is Cliff in Durham, and I'm going to lead this portion of our.
Cliff, you're muted.
To get. All right, let me start at the beginning. Hi, this is Cliff in Durham, and I'm going to lead this portion of our discussion where we continue to talk about a topic that we began last week regarding mail-in versus in-person voting and related issues. I'm going to make a few brief introductory remarks and then open it up for some discussion from the entire group to explore the implications of the voting process for us here in North Carolina and what, if anything, we as Tuesdays with Tillis might want to do going forward. To vote by mail requires submitting a ballot request application ahead of time to your local board of elections, and once you receive the ballot, signing the ballot in the presence of either two witnesses or one notary public. If one requests and receives a ballot and then changes their mind and decides that they want to vote in person, then they could do that. And there's some information in the chat box from You Can Vote that kind of succinctly outlines the steps in that regard. A positive aspect of mail-in voting is that they can eliminate the health risk associated with showing up in person to vote during the pandemic. Possible drawbacks include reports that the ballots may not actually be received by voters in enough time prior to the election, or that they may not be received by the Board of Elections in a timely manner, as was indeed the case in the recent Wisconsin primary. Current uncertainties regarding the status of the U.S. Post Office as it is being currently undermined by Donald J. Trump may further complicate this matter. Voting in person eliminates the problems associated with taking multiple steps in successfully obtaining and submitting a ballot. However, there are likely to be health risks associated with going to the polls during the pandemic. And I should add that the day after our meeting last week, you'll recall that on Wednesday, May the 20th, Donald Trump threatened to withhold federal funding from Michigan for what he called illegally sending out ballots to voters, unquote. What was actually done was the mailing of applications for ballots to voters, and this was done in accordance with the law. He later made a similar threat to the state of Nevada. Indeed, 45 states now allow the kind of voting by mail that Trump opposes. But Trump's threats to punish Michigan gave rise to some memories of events going all the way back to the 2016 election. If you recall, shortly after the presidential election of 2016, there were demands for recalls in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin due to the close margin of victory in each state, but also due to observed irregularities in voting patterns and speculation that these states' voting systems had been successfully hacked by the Russians. And I've put in the chat box a link to an article by a computer scientist whose observations form the predicate for a lot of these attempts to have recounts. And I would just note as an aside, a federal court rejected the request for a recount in Pennsylvania. The request for a recount in Michigan was halted midway by a federal district court, and the recount in Wisconsin was completed and ultimately resulted in an additional 131 votes for Donald Trump. And it should be noted that the Mueller report established that some undisclosed voting systems in Florida and Illinois had been breached. And in addition, an investigation by the Senate Intelligence Committee established that the Russians made extensive efforts to penetrate voting systems in all 50 states. In addition, here in North Carolina, you'll recall the problems observed at the polls in Durham County on election night of 2016. Durham County is the single biggest Democratic stronghold in North Carolina. Problems arose on election night with long lines that occurred because of difficulties verifying the registration of people who showed up at the polls. The voter registration data was recorded using software developed by VR Systems, a Florida-based software company that was hacked by the Russians. The hacking was thought to involve altering the voter information on the rolls when voters initially check in at their polling place in a way that might have delayed the whole process, causing long lines, discouraging people who might have to wait in line, maybe causing them to leave and turn around and go home, or increasing the likelihood that those who remained in line would ultimately have to submit a provisional ballot. So it's fair to say that there are security risks associated with showing up and submitting a ballot at your own polling place as well. Now, for what it's worth, some of you may have seen the very interesting article in Sunday's New York Times entitled, "Trump Sows Doubt on Voting. It Keeps Some People Up at Night." And I put a link to that in the chat box as well, in which it discussed several worst case or doomsday scenarios that are being gamed out by various groups of Democrats and some anti-Trump Republicans in preparation for the 2020 election. We all know that this upcoming presidential election could turn out to be one big mess. It's good to know that some folks are doing preparations right now for dealing with the mess to come. So, where does all of that leave us? We have a presidential election taking place this year amidst a sea of lies, conspiracy theories, and Russia disinformation that has been amplified by the Republican Party and Fox News, all while we struggle to cope with a global pandemic. We have ongoing efforts to suppress the vote. And within this context, we have two imperfect means of casting ballots, each with their own associated pros and cons. So just as each of us has to decide on a strategy on how we'll go get our groceries from time to time, each of us has to decide on a strategy that works best for us as to how we want to cast our vote. Having a choice, though, is a good thing, but the question remains, what will we choose to do? Back in the day when we used to meet on the streets, BC, before Corona, we had a chant that said, when democracy is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Now the question is just exactly how do we do that? So at this point, maybe people can just unmute themselves and we can let everybody chip in as to ideas about how we might want to approach this election coming up.
Thank you for that great summary.
Hey, I have one thing to share. I don't know if it's a real answer. Also, my name's Lauren.
Welcome. Yes, I'm so glad to see you.
It's been a while. So I don't know how effective this is going to be, but I do know of some organizations on the ground, not here in North Carolina, but in Philadelphia, that are working right now to, of course, increase the voter turnout, but with COVID-19 becoming a real threat to turnout during this election cycle, some organizations on the ground have collaborated, and I believe at the moment they are working with city officials to not just get more mail-in ballot applications out to folks, but to actually set up drop boxes, secure drop boxes across the city to allow people to drop in their ballots as another way to increase the turnout. I don't know if there's any efforts on the ground to do it here or if that's even going to be effective, but I thought it was an interesting idea, so I wanted to share it with the group.
Thank you. Doyle.
You're muted, sir. Try again.
Okay, I'm muted by the host.
Got it.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Yeah, one of the concerns that I've had about increasing the amount of voting by mail is that there are times when the voting absentee ballots are not tabulated until late. And if the voting system and the poll workers are overwhelmed by the volume, you could see that on election day, the results would come in, the news people would be all excited about some of this head. But if they're, and then if after some of the news organizations declared a winner, then a whole bunch of absentee ballots changed the direction, this would be exactly the kind of situation that Trump would raise holy hell about. And so my question is, for Cliff, is there any way that the tabulation of the absentee or voting by mail ballots could be done before election day? It would present security problems, but it seemed like to me that might be really important.
Well, I can't give you a direct answer because I don't know that for sure. But one of the things that occurred to me, Doyle, is that I think Galia sent out an email recently where there was a solicitation of feedback to the legislature, if I'm not mistaken. Galia, maybe you can clarify. But I think that there's going to be an opportunity to tweak the way in which we do mail-in voting in this state. And there's still some time. I think the deadline actually may be tomorrow. Is that right, Galia?
I think it's today. I think it was to the board.
It's to your representative. It's HB 1169. Can you hear me?
HB 1169.
Board of Election is today, the 26th. Okay, I hit a dead zone. How about you? Guys, can't hear anybody.
We can hear you, Galia.
Okay, I can't hear you. Okay, so I can't.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we can't hear you.
So let's see. That's today. And it's.
Galia, can you put it in the chat because you have an intermittent connection there and we're not hearing you.
Yeah, put it in the chat, and I'm also looking for it.
It is to the NCGA.
Okay.
And it.
Okay, go ahead, Sandy.
It is due to
Common Cause sent out a message, and it was HB 1169, and you write your representative, and just very short that you support the expansion and improvements to the voting for North Carolina citizens.
Okay, that's great. Sandy, can you put that in the chat? 1169. And then what you just said.
I can't do it, but I can forward afterwards the memo from Common Cause.
House Bill 1169.
1169.
And then what did you say after that?
Representatives, and I'll forward the email right after the meeting.
Thank you.
In 2004, during the presidential election, if you remember, in Florida, a lot of the voting machines were flipping votes, and we were encouraging people to vote on provisional ballots instead of using the machines. Those provisional ballots never got counted, and they never got counted because the winner was declared before any of them were counted. So we need to find a way to do two things. One is to make sure that winners are not declared before all votes are counted. That would be one way of helping. And the other, of course, is to make sure that the machines that we are voting on when we vote in person are machines that will accurately tabulate the votes. And
Cliff, can you speak to that? Because you were the one who helped me make the connection that these voting machines can be hacked. And which, right.
Yeah. Okay. There's, I guess, a couple different things going on. I'm thinking about like what happened in Durham involved the actual role that is referenced by the poll workers when you walk into the polling place and they ask you to identify yourself. They look at your information to verify that you are who you say you are. And one thing that, could occur with a hack is that someone could say that, my name is John Smith and I live at 123 Main Street. And they can say that we have a Jerry Smith who lives at 321 Main Street and that's not you. And so maybe we'll have to give you a provisional ballot, which may or may not be counted, or otherwise you just may not be able to vote. That's one approach to the hacking. The link that I put in the chat earlier was written by a computer scientist who was involved in the 2016 recount. And basically he was saying that the best way to ensure the integrity of a vote is when you have paper. And when you have voting machines that don't have paper backup in some way or another, that is what allows for the hacking and lack of verification of a vote.
Thank you. Okay, let's just take a deep breath. We have a little more time here. I want to hear from people who haven't had a chance to speak. Perfect.
I'll jump in with a reminder of what happened also in Charlotte, the NC State House election, and the stuffing of ballots by the GOP there, and how that became a whole big mess as well. Was that NC4, I think, District 4? Someone remind me. Cliff, you probably remember. I think it was, and that was just 2 years ago. I also put in the chat. They did a hackathon in Las Vegas with kids who were able to hack the voting machines in like 11 minutes or something crazy like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those machines are not all that secure. And to even think that you can have secure voting without some sort of paper trail is just bonkers to me.
Yeah, and here in Durham, we do have optical scanning ballots, so that provides the backup paper trail. I know that's for Durham, and I guess it's for the rest of the state as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think this is Mark. I think it can vary based on the Board of Elections for each county. I think there can be differences in machinery that's, yeah.
Okay.
I know Wake County follows what you just said for Durham, because I was an official in Wake County in February. But yeah, I think it varies. So I think there's some things that we're going to be able to do something about, and there's going to be some things that we're not going to be able to do much about. I think we can push for the legislature to make some changes. I think that's something that we can do. I think that we need to look at how we can encourage people to submit absentee ballot requests now. And I think there needs to be some information provided with that so that there's not confusion. It's kind of an FAQ sheet that kind of documents what is and isn't true, because there's a lot of confusion. Right.
And part of that confusion is being spread by the Board of Elections itself, we discovered this week.
Well, they're probably confused too, to be quite honest.
Right.
Because a bunch of there's just a bunch of noise.
Right. So
Karen, who had said that you needed to bring the absentee ballot with you?
Someone from the Board of Elections, and we have documentation because it was in an email to one of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so I apologize for passing that on, but that we had the documentation and it came directly from the Board of Elections.
In fact, when I went to training in December for the February election, they told us if someone came with their absentee ballot, that there is nothing we could do with that ballot. They could either mail it and make sure it got to the County Board of Elections by 5 p.m., or they needed to vote in person. There's nothing that can be done with that ballot if you bring it with you on election day. Nothing, at least for Wake County.
One thing that hasn't been mentioned that I really want to talk about is early voting. We have 17 days of early voting that may be the best way to vote. I know some people just don't trust absentee ballots, but we have a much better chance of social distancing during early voting. Yeah, Susan.
You're on mute, Susan.
I'm sorry. I think I keep muting you. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to lift up a comment in the chat. I think it was Gan posted it, that apparently there is a bill now to reduce number of witnesses from 2 to 1.
Yes.
And
well,
so
I think
that's progress.
Yeah, that's the bill that we're trying to push for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Karen, you have to respond today. I sent my email to my representative, Joe John, and said, please co-sponsor this bill. He just sent me an email saying, I'm one of the co-sponsors. And all you're saying is write your representative today and just say, please support House Bill 1169 that expands and improves voting for North Carolinians. That's all you do, and ask them to also be a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Perfect.
And you have a copy of that. Please put that on the chat for me, somebody.
Great. Yeah, Lori.
Can we list the organizations that are working on voter rights and just voting procedures in North Carolina? Like You Can Vote, Democracy North Carolina, Common Cause. It looks like Organizing NC. I'm not sure. The thing is, if we could have those in the chat box, and I think we don't want to be reinventing the wheel. We want to know what organizations are actually out there doing things and seeing how we can support those organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know 3, but I don't know if there are any other organizations besides You Can Vote, Common Cause, and Democracy North Carolina.
Rosemary.
Yeah, I just like to just say one thing on that email that we received from the State Board of Elections. That email was cast that here's a person who had requested an absentee ballot. They voted in person. So what were they to do with their absentee ballot? And what that person said was, bring it with you when you vote so it can be, their words, spoiled.
No, you don't need to do that. Just rip it up.
Okay.
You don't need to do anything with it. If you're not going to submit, you can't submit it and then vote in person. So just rip it up.
Okay. So I just want to provide it just for completeness. The other 2 things were there. I saw one note from someone that went to like the Durham County Board of Elections. I myself talked with them at the Wake County Board of Elections. And what they said, Mark, was what you said, was you can just trash it. You don't need to do anything with it. To kind of defend the person to some level at the state, they said you could do that too. But if you didn't want to, you were concerned about that, you could bring it in and they would spoil it. So it seems.
But you don't have to.
But
that's true. You can bring it with you. I mean, you can do anything, right? You can bring it with you. You may have marked it. You want to make sure you mark the same thing. You can take it with you, but you can't submit it as an official ballot.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think they were saying you would submit it as a ballot. I think they were just saying, if you're concerned that you have this, you can give it to me and I'll get rid of it for you. That's what I believe.
You don't have to bring it. That was my.
You don't have to. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. We were told during training for the February election that if someone presented an absentee ballot with us, we were not allowed to take it because we're not allowed to see what people have voted. We could say, we'd ask them, you take it back and throw it away. You know, you can write spoiled on it, whatever, but we weren't allowed to do that because we're not allowed to see what people have voted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just hand this back to Cliff because we just have a few minutes and then we're going to do the closing song. Cliff, any closing words on this subject?
Well, I guess we're in, I guess, T-6 months or whatever to the election, and this is going to be an ongoing concern. And so the question is, what, if anything, does Tuesdays with Tillis want to do in terms of
I think this, Mark, I think we should come up with our FAQ list of questions, get the answers. Because if we're confused, there's a lot of other people that are confused. Just, confirm that we've got the right answers. And then maybe we distribute that somehow. I'm not sure the proper mechanism, along with an absentee ballots form. And, try and encourage people to use it. I mean, that would be one avenue.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
So
I'd just like to remind us that that's one part of the election process. We need to get people to vote. And I think that's something that we have to really work on as well. Getting the vote out, and that's going to be a bear. But I think that's something that we as an organization have got to work on full speed.
Good. I want to honor our time. I want to thank Cliff so much. I want to thank everybody. Please put your questions and comments in the chat, and we can continue chatting after 12:30, but I want to honor the time. I want to have our closing song and our benediction from Susan.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Randa, you're muted.
You did have the lyrics. Well, this is going to be different. That's what election day is all about. That superpower we've got is called the ballot box.
If you don't like who's in there, vote him out.
Vote him out. Yeah, vote him out. When they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout. We'll bring some great ones in, yeah, we'll find us hope again. If we don't like who's in there, we'll vote them out. 2020 never mattered quite like this. The Senate is a swamp that serves the rich. Let's end that graft of lies, get the White House sanitized. That nasty virus Trump must be voted out. Vote him out, yeah, vote him out. When they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout. We'll bring some great ones in, they'll find us hope again. If we don't like who's in there, vote him out. We're praying hard that Trump and Pence stay well, or else the country's sure to go to hell. Imagine if they get sick, we'll turn communist right quick, cause Comrade Nancy's next, you never can tell. Vote him out, yeah, vote him out. I wanna hold your hand, yeah, we'll twist and shout. We'll bring some great ones in and we'll find us hope again. Cause we don't like who's in there, we're gonna vote them out. If we don't like who's in there, vote them out. There you go. A ukulele, no less.
Well, I hope everyone feels better. I certainly do. I thank you all. I've been thinking about fear and feeling the fear. And I happened to listen to an interview with Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo, And she has this poem about releasing the fear and giving the fear back. And that's what these gatherings do for me. And I hope they do for you. It's as we gather together, it's a chance to release the fear and remember the love and compassion, the values we cherish that we hold to the light. We won't turn around. I feel like we're, as Jeremy was talking, we're on a caravan. And we're moving at the speed of light. And light, as Joy Harjo points out, moves at a much higher rate than evil, which is very dense. So I'm hopping on this caravan of light with you all and staying on it until we meet again. So keep your lights on, keep on shining.
I'm going to unmute everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Just want to comment that the Bible says, fear not 66 times.
I love that about light. I love that about light.
Yeah, it says perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
Yeah. And love is so much more powerful than anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a harsh and dreadful thing, as Dorothy Day says.
And yes. And whatever we pay attention to grows.
And I have to say that a ukulele was played today, and it was very exciting.
I love the ukulele. It's great. I really liked the sound of it. For some reason, it's better on Zoom than a guitar. I don't know why. It's so good to see everyone. I miss seeing you in person so much, but it fills my heart to see your faces.
Karen.
Feeling is mutual.
Discussion tonight or tomorrow night, Karen?
Yes.
What?
Are you leading a discussion tonight or tomorrow night?